Good morning, everyone. Happy Wednesday. My name is Christine Anderson, and I am the Anti-Trafficking and Runaway and Homeless Youth Program Coordinator here at OCFS in the Division of Youth Development and Partnerships for Success. And welcome to this morning's session of Summit. Some of this morning's presenters, our first one is Kaylee Feaser. She is an LMSW and she is Chautauqua County's Safe Harbor Coordinator. She coordinates a trauma-informed systems-level approach to prevention, identification, and intervention of commercial sexual exploitation of children and child sex trafficking. She is trained in trauma-focused cognitive behavior therapy, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, also known as EMDR, problematic sexual behavior, cognitive behavior therapy, as well as other treatment modalities, in her free time. Kaylee also provides trauma counseling at the Child Advocacy Program of Chautauqua County. Additionally, she is the co-chair of the Chautauqua County Youth Board, a longtime volunteer with the Girl Scouts of Western New York, and a Yoga Alliance registered yoga teacher. She's passionate about eradicating gender-based violence, helping young people cultivate and sustain healthy relationships, and improving our community systems so that all of our residents can thrive. I'm going to let Kaylee introduce her co-presenters because she can probably do a better job than I can. So take it away, everyone.
Thank you so much. Hi, everybody, and thanks for taking the time to join us this morning. Thanks, Christine and Shannon from OCFS, for all the support you continue to show us in Chautauqua County. Today, my colleagues and I are going to discuss the importance of elevating youth voices, as well as the challenges we've faced and successes we've had doing so in our community. I'm Kaylee Feaser, as Christine said. I coordinate Chautauqua County's Safe Harbor program, and as a licensed clinician, I also provide trauma therapy at our CAC, the Child Advocacy Program, or CAP for short. Here with me today are our panelists, Kaylee Lindstrom, Jessica McKeever, and Karen Yaversky. Want to introduce yourselves?
Good morning. My name is Kaylee Lindstrom. I'm the Director of Family Ministries and Outreach at Bemis Point United Methodist Church, and I'm also the co-founder of Arise Chautauqua, which I'm so excited we get to talk a little bit more about that here in a little bit with my friends Kaylee and Jessica. And I also lead an Arise Chautauqua circle at Bemis Point United Methodist Church.
Hey everyone, I'm Jessica McKeever. I am the Director of Operations at Conduit Ministries in Jamestown, New York, and the co-founder with Kaylee at Arise Chautauqua. And I am actually the former Safe Harbor Coordinator in Chautauqua County before Kaylee took over. So I'm really excited to be here and just continue this work.
And I'm Karen Yaversky. Nice to be with you this morning. I hope you're all getting the same nice snow that we're getting here in our lake effect area. I am an advocate with the Child Advocacy Program. I've been here for about 10 and a half years, and for the last year have been working more closely with Kaylee in the Safe Harbor program that is housed here at CAP. I am an advocate with Safe Harbor. I help do presentations and public awareness, and I'm trying to help facilitate advocacy with the rest of our advocates at CAP.
Thank you. So welcome everyone to Chautauqua County. Chautauqua County is New York State's 23rd largest county, located in the southwestern corner of New York State along the New York-Pennsylvania border. It's the westernmost of New York's counties. Chautauqua Lake is located in the center of our county, and Lake Erie is its northern border. Our two largest cities are Jamestown in the southern end of the county and Dunkirk in the northern end. Per the 2020 census, the racial makeup of the county is 94% white, 2.2% Black or African American, 0.4% Native American, and 0.3% Asian. 4% of our population are Hispanic or Latino of any race. We have a large Amish community and a small portion of the Cattaraugus Reservation of the Seneca Nation of Indians. The average median income is $46,820. Chautauqua County is home to the Chautauqua Institution, Lily Dale, the country's first natural gas well, location of the first shots fired in the War of 1812, birthplace of Lucille Ball, and the list goes on. While the manufacturing sector provides the base for the county's economy with important and growing contributions from the retail, service, and tourism sectors, farming is an important piece of our county's economic makeup. Chautauqua County has more farms and produces more grapes than any other county in New York State. So now that we've set the stage, let's get into it. So today we're going to discuss the concept of youth voice and why it matters, challenges to engaging youth, We'll hear from youth participants from two outstanding Chautauqua County programs, Arise Chautauqua and the Jamestown High School's Justice for All class. And we'll discuss best practices for amplifying youth voices in your community. Young people have always been at the forefront of social change. From Malala Yousafzai to Greta Thunberg, from the textile girls and the newsboys of the 1800s, to Ruby Bridges and the Little Rock Nine in the height of the civil rights movement, the student strike of 1970 in response to the war in Vietnam, to today's teenagers fighting for their lives in Iran, to the Parkland High School students protesting for gun control and safe schools, to 12-year-old me asking voters to pass the local school budget 20-some years ago. Young people have historically been a driving factor in democratic reform, economic growth, and social change in their communities, in their countries, and throughout the world. It is not uncommon today to see examples of young folks banding together to take a stand for social causes, pleading with politicians and driving public policy. There are social media campaigns, marches, protests, sit-ins, and walkouts. Chances are you've participated in or at least witnessed some of these. Helping young people understand the weight their voice carries and creating environments and systems where youth feel safe and supported to share their views is near and dear to my heart. So when this topic was presented to us as something we could highlight during the Safe Harbor Summit, needless to say, I was pretty excited. Karen, who also shares this passion, we got together, she and I, and started to cook up some ideas for a presentation. But it didn't take us long to realize that we shouldn't be the ones educating other professionals on youth voice. That's something we could ask of the youth in our community. So we connected with some of our amazing partners that are already doing this great work. My first call was to Jess and Kaylee with Arise. Before a person can change the world, they have to find their voice. And Arise Chautauqua does just that. So Kaylee, do you want to discuss our partnership and this project?
Absolutely, thank you. So when I first presented this idea to our Arise girls, which is a group of about 7 girls, and we've been meeting for the past 3 years and will continue to do so until the girls graduate from high school. But they were super excited. They were taken aback at first and just honored to be able to share their voice and their opinions here. They were also really excited to help Kaylee out, and Kaylee has come to speak to our Arise girls. At one of our circles, she spoke about social media, how to stay safe on social media, and talked about human trafficking. And according to the girls, this was one of the most beneficial circles and learning experiences for them. So they were really excited to be able to sort of give back in this way and to just help Kaylee out. They were a little bit nervous when they heard how many people would be hearing their voice today. But overall, super excited. And I'm so excited for you guys to be able to meet. You're going to meet 3 of our 7 girls here in just a moment. And I'm going to preface this by saying the first video that you're going to see, the quality of the video is not as good as the rest, but it's going to get better. What do you think it means to use your voice?
To stick up for people or yourself.
Okay, and what, can you think of an example of a time when you did that?
When my friend was getting bullied because of her looks and how she, speaks. So I told the people, shush.
And did it help?
Yes.
That's awesome. What do you think it means to use your voice to advocate for yourself or others?
I think to use your voice to speak up when injustice is done against you or you or somebody else, or just kind of voice your opinion on something if you disagree with it.
What do you think it means to use your voice?
It means to speak your mind and to let people know what you're feeling or what they're doing isn't okay, or to just make a difference, because if you use your voice, you can really help other people make a difference in their life, and you can make a difference in other people's lives by helping them do that.
So our formal definition of youth voice is the active, distinct, and concentrated ways that young people represent themselves throughout society. These are the unique ideas, opinions, and concerns that youth have. Oftentimes, youth voice can offer new perspective that we may have previously been blinded to. Youth voice is also including youth in decision-making and giving them the ability to have positions of leadership and creating space for youth to advocate for themselves as others, as voiced by our girls that you just saw. We encourage youth voice when we actively listen or seek out these opinions, and when we see these opinions as having value. So without further ado, let's dive into the words of our youth on why youth voice is important.
I think getting involved in using your voice is very important. Because if you're not using your voice to stand up against all the injustices and all the bigotry in our world, then you're just letting it fester and grow by doing nothing and just sitting around. You can just think it's bad and just not do anything, which I did for many years of my life. And I felt awful about it, but once I started saying no, telling people what they were doing is wrong, and just making moves to do good things in my life, I flourished and I got a lot better. It feels good to do good. Yeah.
What would you say to the other youth about using their voice and getting involved?
I would tell them that we are the next generation and we need to speak out about all these problems because we are going to change the world slowly if we keep on doing it.
How would you talk to other youth about the importance of using their voice?
I don't know.
Is it important for them to use their voice?
Yes.
Why?
Because we need to. When needed.
Yeah, why?
Because it stops bullying.
Yeah. What else?
I don't know. Helps to feel better about yourself.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that it's easy for everybody?
No.
How come?
Because some people have trouble doing that.
Yeah. What advice would you give to people who have a hard time using their voice?
I don't know, it's kind of hard to explain. I've helped people a lot. It's just hard to explain it.
Hard to explain it.
Yeah.
What would you tell somebody who isn't feeling so good about themselves?
Tell them that they're worthy and beautiful.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
It would help them in the long run because we are the next generation, obviously, and by reaching out to other people and by telling people what we think, it'll help us in the long run, and it'll help old people, like the older people, get that ready for us.
What if they don't want to?
Well, then I guess you have to overthrow them. we have to take that step. If they don't want to help us, we have to take that step for ourselves. We have to do it for ourselves.
Mm-hmm. What if young people are afraid?
I guess do it with somebody who you know is going to help you, or who knows wants to help other people. Do it in a group, because it's easier to do it in a group than by yourself sometimes, because you'll have other people, you'll meet new people that think the same way that you do, that want to change the same things you do. So
now that we've heard from some of the youth about why youth voice matters and why it's important, we also recognize that engaging youth isn't always easy. It's not always easy for them. It's not always easy for us. And so, again, we're going to hear from one young woman, Bree, about what she has to say about the challenges to engaging youth, the challenges for youth to use their voice.
Why do you think that adults might not listen to youth?
I think they don't listen because they're they had their childhood and they base their childhood off of the ones that they're providing with their kids or students, and so they think, oh yeah, this isn't really happening, or they just don't believe it because they never went through it, so they don't actually know what's actually happening and if it's true or not.
Mm-hmm.
In your community, in your setting, what are the barriers? What are the challenges to engaging youth? And think about it both from your professional standpoint, but also from the standpoint of youth. What are some of the things that make it difficult for youth voice to be engaged? And if you would put those in the chat. Yeah, lack of funds, trust, awesome. Trauma, I'm seeing a lot about distrust and the need to have trust, transportation, peer pressure, how to respond. Having time to be intentional, the time that we need. Lack of support, fear, fewer resources. Great stuff. Not enough positive outlets, not knowing where to turn. Need to build a greater sense of community supports for the kids. Oh, the age difference. Sure, kids are often looked down upon because of their age or feel like they are. Not having open minds to change the people around them. Language, cultural norms, definitely looking at transportation. Absolutely great responses. Challenging responses. Bad experiences with systems in the past. We haven't been a great society at giving children and youth a chance to be listened to and taken seriously. So that youth aren't able to see the results of their voice. Peers trust each other and not adults. So true of adolescents, right? They aren't trusting us. The systems that disempower people. Balancing out their opinions and their voice with the existing rules and regulations are barriers as well. So here are some of the things that you folks have brought up. A lot of things. Environmental issues, scared of what could happen. No community space or center to be with other kids. Nothing to do in the community. Good stuff here. Well, you can keep popping those in and we'll kind of share some of the things that we came up with. I think you've hit on most of these. Someone mentioned the trauma. And so certainly, especially the youth that we work with, the kind of kids we're trying to engage, most of them have had some form of trauma. They've been victimized or they're at risk for exploitation or trafficking. And so those are not easy places to come out of. And you mentioned the trust or more the distrust. When kids have already had their trust betrayed through their traumatization, it's going to make it hard for them to trust again enough to use their voice. And also their lack of experience. A lot of youth don't maybe know how to use their voice. They maybe have found that when they try to speak up before, their experiences show them adults aren't really willing to listen. So for youth, their lack of experience may be a challenge. And from the adult perspective, we may see that as a reason to not listen to them. Oh, they don't know what they're talking about. They haven't been around, long enough to really understand. And their lack of self-confidence and self-worth, which can be tied into both of the two previous things. Their trauma can reduce that self-confidence and self-worth, and either their lack of experience or their experience with the systems and adults who haven't listened to them can make it harder for them to feel like they have anything to say or that anybody will listen to them. So those are some of the intrinsic things within our youth that are barriers. And then, again, some of the external barriers that many of you mentioned, geographical and logistical considerations. We're in a rural county, as Kaylee kind of mentioned, with very challenging transportation issues. A lot of small schools, but a lot of little pockets of kids, and not an easy way to gather kids so that they can collaborate with those who share similar interests and issues and passions. So that's a big consideration. And then, as we talked about, or several of you mentioned in there, just having as adults in systems that are already overworked and taxed for resources, the lack of funding, the lack of time, and the lack of other resources to spend time with these kids, to help them learn how to use their own voice, but also for us to support them in that and help them figure out, how can their voice be better heard, be amplified. So for us to have that time and the other resources, I think we've hit on a lot of those. But I do want to really notice and affirm many of the comments that you made in the chat box, and what I'm looking at right now, fearing their words will be used against them. Again, for the kids that we have worked with, that lack of trust. So as we go through this, thinking about how do we how do we support kids in this, that building trust with them is really an important thing. And that brings me to what we have found is helpful in Chautauqua County. We certainly don't have all the answers, and what we have done may not work in every situation, but we have found that collaborating with other agencies has really been one of the best ways to support kids in using their voice. And two of these agencies, as were mentioned earlier, are Arise Chautauqua and the Jamestown High School Justice for All class. So Jessica is going to go more in depth onto what Arise is, and then I'll come back and talk more about the Justice for All class.
How has participating in Arise helped you to use your voice?
No, it's kind of helped me like mainly with myself and like with positive thinking of myself. And so if people are rude to me, it's more easier.
Easier to what?
To stick up for myself and others.
Because you have a positive view of you?
Yes.
That's awesome.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm really excited to be here today to talk to you about Arise Chautauqua and what we're doing. As we mentioned in our introductions, Kaylee Lindstrom is my co-founder, and Kaylee Fazer is actually our third partner. So we're working on this together. But to give you a little backstory and how we ended up where we are right now, I'll start with my time at Safe Harbor. Chautauqua County, when we got our Safe Harbor funding, leaned heavily into some prevention education. And I spent my time there leaning into building partnerships with school districts and community organizations and getting into classroom style settings and talking to kids about what human trafficking is, all of the risk factors, red flags and warning signs, all of those kind of things. And it quickly became really apparent when we started doing some data collection and analyzing that data that we were talking to kids in middle school and high school, and then once they were able to identify what was happening, we were seeing them turn up on our Safe Harbor caseload, and that created what I like to call maybe like a holy discontent in me, where I was like, that is not, we're not doing enough. This isn't the best way to approach this. So trying to be creative and staying within the confines of grant funding and the restrictions of my job, I felt like maybe it was time for me to move on and explore some ways outside of where our Safe Harbor program was located, and that was a prevention education organization. And I could see the clear need for the work that the Child Advocacy Program was currently doing to be the kind of work that Safe Harbor in our county needed to do. So I left to explore what anti-trafficking work outside of Safe Harbor would look like, and our Safe Harbor program transitioned to CAP. And I am very thankful that over that time, Kaylee Fazer and the staff at CAP kept me really looped into the trafficking work that they were doing. And I started to explore some other opportunities. It was called Brave. I think we talked about it last year here, so there may be some of you who have heard about the Brave initiative that we were doing here, but it was anti-trafficking work through empowerment and elevating youth voice. We took that and kind of did a few event style things and turned that into a what we called a Brave Circle. And that is where Kaylee Lindstrom started to meet with those 7 girls. Like, she kind of met those girls through our Brave events and started meeting with them in that Brave Circle kind of setting. Over the course of the time, Kaylee Lindstrom and I would frequently talk about, like, we need more, right? Like, there's just this constant, like, we're not doing enough. And when I was at Safe Harbor, I'd started to explore the idea of a drop-in center and just a place for kids to come, connect with adults, get their needs met, their physical needs met, whether that's a meal, shower, clothing, hygiene products, all of those kind of things, in a place that didn't require a massive intake packet or a lot from them. Just a place where they could come, be cared for, those kind of things. And that had just been something I had been thinking of. And Kaylee Lindstrom and I said, well, let's just do it. Let's find a place. Let's find a location and continue to build upon this. We have slides that say who, what, where, when, why. They answer the 5 W's, and I'm kind of wrapping it all up into one big thing. So the next few slides you'll see there, we're just talking about kind of answering all of these questions. But when we looped Kaylee Fazer in, we thought that connection to somebody who's currently doing the anti-trafficking work in our community and our community partners, just building those out. We thought that would be the best approach. We can't do it alone. We know that. And it's kind of just been one of those things where we continue to lean into building out circles. Our circles are both peer groups, but also provide those girls, as Kaylee Lindstrom talked about a bit ago, provided the girls that are meeting in her group with trusted adults that they can come to, a safe space for them to use their voice. We know that they are setting the rules of their groups. I read in the chat earlier, somebody was saying, like, taking into consideration their voice, but allowing them to kind of, we have to follow certain rules, but really having the group be a girl-led thing. We continue to just lean into this work of empowering, equipping, life skills classes, and essentially celebrating wins for our girls that might sometimes look like throwing a high school graduation party, but also just equally celebrating, like an A on a test or a quiz, or even just a homework assignment. Turning in a homework assignment, we know that for some of our kids is a really big deal. And just being the people that tell them, like, we see you, we care for you, we're here for you. And just continuing to lean into that to try to take in a less systematized way the opportunity to get to know our kids, and try to rebuild trust in a way that is led by them, and where we're just consistently there for them despite all of the other things, all of the other circumstances of their lives, in like a non-judgmental, helpful way, building like natural connection and taking it out of the system. We are in the launch phase in Chautauqua County, moving into our facility, but it's all happening and happening very quickly, and we just continue to lean into the work that Kaylee Lindstrom's doing in her groups as a really great model for how effective this can really be.
And who are some of the people that you feel closest to? Like, who has done a good job of listening to your opinion?
Obviously, you and Jordan, and...
You don't have to say that.
Oh, I don't? Well, like, it's true, though. It's true, though. Like, you always listen to me rant. Like, my mom, and, that guy's counselor, if I ever feel like talking to her. But, like, mostly, like, my friends and swim teachers.
I love that. And I think it's a great illustration of what Jessica was just talking about. What's been happening with these kids is they've learned to trust the adults that they work with. So great job, Bree, in sharing that. So that's Arise, and obviously some of the kids you're hearing from today are from that Arise group. The other group that we've connected with is a fairly innovative class, English class actually, developed and taught by Betsy Robert at Jamestown High School. She's been teaching the class since 2018, and it kind of developed out of her own sense of wanting to respond to injustice in the world and wanting to help her youth that she's in contact with every day see more what's going on around them and be able to develop and use their voice and to actually learn how to do that. And so in this class, she teaches, does some teaching about what justice is, what some of the social issues are. She queries the youth on what are some of the issues of their day that they are most interested in. And then she develops connections with local agencies who are responding to some of these situations throughout our community, including the Child Advocacy Program. Betsy has invited us in almost every semester since she's been teaching the class, maybe with the exception of the COVID breaks. But we go in both as CAP to talk about what our Child Advocacy Center does and child abuse in general, but also Safe Harbor. So usually I represent CAP and Kaylee goes in at a different time to talk about Safe Harbor and human trafficking. And then as you can see here, this is when the group came to CAP to visit us, to see our facility, to see kind of firsthand where these things are happening. Betsy also does some things she calls craftivism. And as many of you know, when kids come to a social or to a child advocacy center, we often offer a stuffed animal and a blanket to kids. But most of those blankets are little lap-sized blankets. And so we said, well, wouldn't it be great if we had some full-size blankets for some of the high school kids who come in? And so they made us a couple of the flannel or fleece tied quilts. And this was a picture of them after they toured our facility and delivered the quilts that they had tied for these kids. So Betsy is giving them an opportunity to see firsthand what some of the issues are in our community, what agencies are working with to address those issues, but also where some of the gaps are. And then her students, because it's an English class, they also have to write about this. You'll hear some of them talk about their projects. And so that's the gist of the class. But let's hear now from some of the class videos and some of their responses to Betsy's questions.
I would usually explain Justice for All by saying that it's a great class to join if you're feeling bombarded with all of the issues in society, because every day we turn on the news, there's a brand new issue, whether it be natural disasters or more deep issues with race and the female empowerment movement. So I think it's really imperative for everybody to be in this class because it could really help them talk about the issues.
Justicia para Todos es una clase bien agradable y te da mucha enseñanza.
We delve into social issues that probably aren't known to most people. People know of them, they don't know the circumstances and the actual events that took place that surrounded those events.
I would say it's the kind of class that accepts everyone and promotes equality.
You know, we explore what our city has to offer for people in need, people that need help, etc. and stuff like that. We have guest individuals that come in and tell us about their personal life experiences and how they change that around, and it's phenomenal. I mean, it truly is an aspect changer, if you will.
In class, I just remember we had a lot of speakers, which is really nice to have a lot of different viewpoints instead of just kind of talking about something we read in an article.
We need a Justice for All class for everybody. We need to navigate these tough issues of society. We need to come together and try to find more about our common ground. And so when we're thinking about our identities, the diversities. Sometimes conflict comes up. It's confusing and overwhelming, but this is the type of class that helps you navigate it in a supportive, creative, engaging way.
The Justice for All class was a lot of fun. So pretty much we learned how to use our voice and speak out, but we also learned about the different issues that were around our town, and we walked around and saw the different issues. We also learned how to help people who would need those resources that we learned about.
Do you have any specific memories from your service in Justice for All that stick out to you?
Definitely the CAP trip, and then also a lot of the homeless shelters we went to. Those were definitely the very strong ones we went to, because a lot of those major issues are in Jamestown and definitely need a lot more help.
I think one thing was all of the conversations we had in class together, and it really made me realize that we all stand for different things, and it's important to be respectful to others and appreciate what they have to say. And it really changed my personal outlook on a lot of matters, because I might not have agreed with certain things, but now I stand for a lot of the things that people brought up, because it changed my outlook.
I think at the beginning I had an attitude that it wasn't really just a big deal, everything that's going on. And by the end I was really shocked to see how much is really happening right around me.
I've learned to be more lenient. I've learned to maybe be more accepting of people for who they are. And, it's interesting because before this class, maybe I was a little on the mean side, but after taking it, I learned that, everyone is struggling with a personal battle, including myself, including you, including everyone.
Yeah, I made little stickers that had Colin Kaepernick's logo, which is his big afro that he's known for, and it said, "Know your rights." And it was a little sticker to put on phones, water bottles, laptops, just to spread the word.
I think the most important one to me was feminism, which is what I did my final project in the class, just because it's the one that has the biggest impact on my personal life. And I like being able to do a project that was important to me in the class and not just something that I had to do.
I think today the most important social issue to me is racism and police brutality. It does exist as much as people want to deny it, and it's just something that still shouldn't be around in such a modern time.
Getting what it was like from other people right from them.
Okay. Can you think of an example?
When we read The Hate You Gave, and we talked a lot about race, I'm white and I got to hear stories from people who are African American and what it was like for them, and I don't understand that on my own, so hearing it firsthand was really eye-opening.
For my personal passion project, I focused on Colin Kaepernick and his Take a Knee stance, which was very popular in 2017. And his camp, Know Your Rights camp, for educating youth on how to interact with police, how to get a good education.
So, as you can see, we have some awesome community partners, and that's what we have found works for us here at CAP in elevating youth voices, really looking around us and seeing who's already doing things in the community, making contacts. Betsy Roberez is a pretty amazing person, and I happen to have known her since she was about 16 years old. Before doing this work, I worked on the happy side of childhood at a Christian Camp and Conference Center for about 20 years in Chautauqua County. Betsy was both a camper there and an awesome staff member, and over the years we've stayed in contact through our church. And when she was developing this class and looking for agencies to connect with, she reached out to me because she knew I was working for CAP. And so we have really tried to leverage our local resources, to use both our personal and our professional connections to see where, who is doing the work and how can we continue to collaborate with them on this. Oh, and one thing I wanted to mention, I saw in the chat, somebody said they love the jackets, the Justice for All jackets that the kids have. And I think those were first made because one of the things Betsy does, at least with one of her classes, she teaches both semesters, she tries in the spring to take her class to Washington, D.C. to really learn more about, legislative activism as well. So she's doing remarkable work with those kids and really giving them an identity with those jackets as well as with that trip.
So as we've talked about in Chautauqua County, we've been successful in engaging youth and amplifying their voices by leveraging existing local resources and both our professional and personal networks. So to summarize our best practices, we recommend folks identify who's already engaging with youth in your community and helping to elevate that voice. And then consider your personal and professional networks. Think outside the box. Think about former colleagues, old teachers, scout leaders, church friends, old campers. Break down silos and collaborate with others outside of your agency, organization, or system. So one of my favorite sayings when I talk about really anything safe harbor is to utilize your existing local resources. There are adults and kids out there that are already doing this great work. So brainstorm with the other people in your lives that are passionate about this work and you will find them, whether it's a Girl Scout troop or a church youth group. There are kids that are sharing their voices. So how can you help amplify that and, sow those seeds of prevention work? So going back to the chat, as we kind of wrap things up here, take a moment, and Karen, I'm going to ask you to kind of read through that again. If you would take a moment here to just write in the chat what ways work for you to connect with youth in your community. Maybe something completely, outside of our recommendations has been helpful. What can you share with others on this call? Or maybe you're in line with us and you have, utilized different networks and existing resources. What's working for you to amplify that youth voice in your own communities?
Consistency. Awesome. Being there for the kids, being there in your agency, maybe long enough to develop those, being present, showing youth that you're invested and interested. Awesome. Setting up outreach events.
So next question for folks to consider, who is already elevating a youth voice in your community outside of yourself and your agency perhaps? Who is already doing that work?
We sometimes use Duncan as a way first to connect with youth, get a coffee, drink. I'm seeing a lot of things, answers still to the previous question that have a lot to do with developing relationships with youth, and that's great. Some have a youth board. Marcia has a youth board who are using their voices for their school districts and communities, building youth advocacy skills, creating space for them to use that voice, building on existing communities, who you are. So some of these other agencies are schools, local agencies, libraries, churches, visiting community locations like libraries where youth are already great for connection building. The youth themselves being advocates for each other, youth workshops, visiting in the school. So obviously getting out and being with youth where they are, not expecting them to come to us. Great. Rockland has partnered with Brave Hearts Move, which is a youth advocacy program. Cool. Be interested to hear more about that. Develop more social media platforms to express voices. What a great idea to, if you could use that in a way that is using social media in a monitored way that's really giving kids a chance to use voices positively, that would be a great way to model a different way of using social media. Great organization is called Voices Unheard, and I haven't heard of that, so thank you, Kim. Yeah, that positive use of social media. Great.
So just to wrap things up here, we are going to hear from the youth from Arise and Justice for All class, explaining how using their voices helped and what recommendations they have for the adults in their lives.
It's shown me how I could speak up for someone and for myself, even if I didn't understand some things, and then I realized, if this happens, this isn't normal. So I could say something and help others or myself in these situations that aren't good for no one.
On
honestly, like I took it because my counselor recommended it. I had no clue what it was, but I'm really glad I took it. Taught me a lot about the injustices that are going on in our community that I had no clue about before.
I signed up for the course because we don't really have any classes that we can talk about social issues in, and sometimes in classes it's something we're not allowed to do, and I like the idea that there was a class that we could talk about that kind of thing in, because we don't have any, and I think we need to have that for young adults so they know what is going on in the world that they're going to go into.
I decided to start this class really as a response to the overwhelming, what do we do? You know, how do we handle all this? You name it, you know, it's racial reconciliation, LGBTQ rights, human trafficking, the refugee crisis, environmental injustice. You can get compassion fatigue, and to prevent students from just taking a seat and saying, wow, that's a lot. Instead of being in awe of the issue, I think we all need support, encouragement, tools, even the challenge, even the invitation to not be in awe, but to take some action.
Justice for every single soul on this planet is an absolute necessity to learn about and to start appreciating.
Last one. What advice can you give to adults about listening to youth?
Advice? Oh my goodness. To listen to youth, I would just encourage them to say, okay, this seems like a serious situation. I should check it out. And if there's nothing really going on, that's good. But if there is, you should be happy that you actually did take that chance to look at the situation, and you should always really do so. And if it's like a continuous pattern of like, okay, this is just waking up, then find a way to tell them this isn't something to joke about, and so that they can learn, and then you can also learn as well.
So what would you say to other adults about listening to young people's voice?
I'd say come in with an open mind. A lot of adults come into things like a lot of grown people have already grown. They've already learned the things they've learned. They always come in with a closed mind most of the time, only believing what they believe. You need to open your mind more, be open to new experiences, to new people, to new thought processes. If you're not, you're just gonna destroy yourself. You're just gonna, it's not gonna be a good time.
What do you think youth perspective brings when adults start listening?
I think it just brings something fresh, something new, something to think about.
So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now, and we'll take any questions folks might have. And before I do that, my email address is on the screen right here. If anybody has questions that you'd like to speak with one of the presenters, feel free to email me and I'm happy to connect you. So if you want to write that down or take a picture, go for it. Otherwise, I'm sure contact information will be sent out at a later date. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now and see if we have any questions.
Thank you all so much. There are some questions in the chat, but I just wanted to reiterate how great it was to hear about this from young people themselves, because that's the whole point. And I think having a teenager myself, they are so passionate about everything they believe in. It's just about channeling it, right? And it gives me so much hope for the future, right? So there's a couple questions about Justice for All, and I think many of us would like to know how we can get enrolled in that class without actually having to go back to high school. The first is, and Betsy may be a better resource for this, so maybe we could bring those questions back if you guys don't know the answers to her. One is, how did she get the school to buy in? Because as many of us know who work with school districts, and I know, Kaylee, we've had this conversation a few times in the past, there's a lot of resistance to talk about anything controversial or social justice based. And the follow-up to that is, does she have a specific curriculum design that she follows each semester?
I'll take this because I can say I don't know as well as the rest of them. No, I do know it was not an easy lift to get this class scheduled. And like I said, it is considered an ELA class, I believe. It's an elective, so I don't know how it counts toward their requirements, but I think it fulfills an English requirement. I would be happy to connect with Betsy at some point and try to answer those questions and to see if she would be willing to connect with anybody directly. We had hoped to have her on the call, but she just didn't feel like she could take the time to do this. So I'll check in with her on both of those. I'm sure she has to have, a lesson plan and a curriculum, and it ties in very strongly, as I mentioned at the beginning, that students have to do reading and writing and research kind of things to fulfill those ELA requirements. So I will try to answer those questions and see what I can find out. And yes, I agree. It does count toward their lives, and it'd be great if we could all take it.
Yeah, it's really a life skills class, right? I mean, it's an English class, obviously, in nice definition. But I think if we really think about it, teaching young people how to take what they're hearing in society or from a variety of sources and really form their own opinion. And as the young person said, being able to listen to other people who may have differing opinions in a respectful manner and have respectful conversations.
And how valuable that is right now in our society, right?
Exactly, right? And, they're surrounded by news probably more than any other generation ever has. They have instant access to anything they want pretty much at any time. And that's a positive sometimes. And it can also be a negative, as we all know. So teaching them how to figure out what their own opinion and feelings really are and how to express that is crucial.
Yeah. I'll also, I just mention, Christine, the videos that you could tell were more produced videos rather than iPhone videos. First of all, Betsy collaborates with the tech, whatever the video tech class is, and they use the studio and so forth. And I suspect those videos are partly put together to continue to sell and justify the class. So I think she does a good job of, communicating what is happening in the class.
Yeah. So there's a question. Jessica talked something about Brave and a Brave Circle. Could you explain what that is?
Sure. Brave is what Brave Global is actually an organization that was started by a woman named Danielle Strickland to do some anti-trafficking through empowerment work. And when I first left Safe Harbor, we got connected with them and kind of leaned into their model. But we transitioned away from Brave and calling it Brave when we decided to open Arise and expand upon the programming that we could offer. So that it was just one of the steps. It was a introduction essentially for us in Chautauqua County to thinking a little bit more creatively about our prevention steps.
Great.
Jessica, would it be fair to say the Brave Circles also incorporated some elements of the Girls Circle model?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So our Brave Circle is what Kaylee started the group that we're now calling an Arise Circle as. And they did have a journal, one that they've used, and it talked about a lot about identity. But as Arise continues to build out circles, our intention is to use the Girls Circle model. Kaylee Fazer and I are both trained in Girls Circle, and Karen also. And Kaylee Lindstrom will be taking the training in the next month or so. So we are, Girls Circle is exactly what we're doing inside of those circles.
And then to add to that, we're also trained, some of us, in the Love of 146, Not a Number curriculum, and we intend to utilize that within the Arise circles as well. So the very specific trafficking prevention.
Yeah. Someone had asked earlier in the chat as well about the curriculum that we used in classrooms, middle school and high school. And Not a Number is what I did use at our high school level. And then we used I Am Little Red. I know that I actually learned about that at this summit in 2018.
Long time ago.
In 2017, I think. I had a newborn with me the whole time. And then we use child and teen safety matters as well in classrooms.
Yeah, there's just to kind of piggyback off what you said, last year we did a presentation during Summit on Aaron's Law, which for those of you who don't know requires school districts throughout New York State to provide curriculum about child sex abuse and trafficking within schools, and schools can choose which curriculum they use. So if you're looking for other resources about that, the NYSED website, you just could Google Aaron's Law resources and they'll give you a whole chart based on grade level and all sorts of different things. But I know many schools use Not a Number. I would highly, highly recommend it. It's an amazing curriculum. It's great. It's OCFS supported for a reason, as it's Little Red. And there's actually a question about I Am Little Red. How did the young people respond to I Am Little Red?
So I tried that we acquired that as soon after I learned about it at the summit in 2017 to try it out because like I said earlier, we started to get referrals to Safe Harbor from kids that I had in class. And I'm like, wow, we're talking to them way too late. But I didn't think that Not a Number was going to be the right tool to use in a middle school classroom. So I started to do I Am Little Red for 7th and 8th graders. And our 8th graders were like, I don't know, this is a little immature for me, a little young for me. 7th grade, we got into some 6th grade classrooms with I Am Little Red. In 6th grade and 7th grade responded really well. Yep, they were really engaged. But like I said, when we got to the 8th graders, they weren't as engaged with the content.
Yeah. Because we have some newer folks on the call, so maybe we could explain what I Am Little Red is. If somebody would like to do that, so they can understand the maturity level, and this is
Sure.
ish for me.
Yeah, so I was breaking it up actually into 2 days. I was going into the classroom for 2 days. There was some content that was provided, and I'm talking about 2018. I haven't been doing the work for 3 years now. But so we were doing there's like a video. It was an animated video at that point. I'm not sure if there's been changes to any of it actually.
There's not.
An animated video gave some examples of exploitation and trafficking, and then there was a small lesson guide that I wasn't sure covered all of the stuff that we should be covering with 7th and 8th graders, so I expanded upon that with some additional activities, but kind of just talking about the red flags and warning signs, listening to examples of somebody shared in the chat the link to the website, so that would be helpful. Some examples of what it might sound like when somebody is trying to do essentially grooming them and those kind of things. So
thank you.
Yeah.
Another quick question. So aside from the class that the young people take in high school, the Justice for All class, you talked a lot about the Arise groups. How is it my understanding that's done through the church, and then how do you get the parents to buy in, assuming they need to?
Sure. So the existing Arise group that's happening, that Kaylee Lindstrom facilitates, some of those girls were connected to her church initially, but they got looped into Arise, or to the Brave Circle. We're calling it Arise Circle now, after one of our events.
Okay.
So we had done kind of a girls outreach event, we had speakers, some breakout session, those kind of things. They got connected to her through that and through referrals from local doctors' offices, because we had started to do some outreach, and as well as the child advocacy program. Kaylee had made that referral. So she's hosting at a church because that was just the natural place for her to do it. But the girls are not all from her church. I think she has 2 people that maybe she connected that way, but the rest are girls that were connected to other local resources.
And I know like one of the kids in that group is a client of mine that I see for therapy, and I referred her to that group as part of her treatment plan. So she was not connected to the church in any way. Now their family is, but that came much later after she was connected to the Kaylee's group.
And do they need parental consent or buy-in to participate, to do any of the activities? Is that a struggle?
Some of the kids are in the foster care system, so we've had to have some special considerations around those things, but besides that, no. I actually love this story, and I think that it's really I think it just points to the value of, I saw somebody say earlier, like consistency is one of the things that they've seen. Kaylee and there's 2 other volunteers in that group have committed from 3 years ago now to high school graduation. Most of her girls are in 9th and 10th grade. But one of her girls is in the foster system and had her placement changed. And she didn't have contact information for, she lost everything when she left that first house. And she just kept saying to them, like, no, I have to go to Brave. You have to figure it out. So they knew where Brave was at Kaylee's church, and her new foster family had reached out and got her connected back. But that was like the one thing, even though she lost everything else in the process of that, like that circle was the one thing that she was like, no, I need that to be like, that's my safe place. Like that's the thing for me. And I, like when all of the other trusted adults in her life are changing, like Kaylee and Jordan, their other volunteers have been her touchstone. So
that speaks volumes.
It sure does.
There's a question, is not a number similar to I Am Little Red?
I Am Red definitely, or I Am not a number, sorry, is definitely more, it takes a deeper dive. You're there for quite, you're spending more time with them, over just more time, more information, more conversation around healthy relationships and the red flags and warning signs in relationships and boundary setting and those kind of things. And I Am Little Red really does talk about trafficking and exploitation pretty much to the point in a middle school appropriate way. Yeah.
I would agree. I'm gonna pause first. Go ahead, Karen.
I was gonna say, while you're scanning through to see if there are more questions, I've been texting with Betsy. I didn't know how to get a response, and she's obviously at school now, but I asked her, the question, how did she sell Justice for All to the school personnel? She said, I had to propose it, present it to the board, connect to the English department, and state objectives. Admin has been very supportive and usually say yes to my request because they'll know I'll work hard at it. And I can confirm Betsy's one of the hardest working and most competent people I know. So you got to be good when you do stuff like that. So.
Well, thanks for checking in with Betsy about that.
Sure. And I followed up with her, but I haven't heard back yet about whether she would be willing to talk with some people and if I could share her email address with those of you who are interested in doing that. So I'll let you know if she chimes in before we're done. Otherwise, we'll do this by email later.
That's fine. I don't see any other questions. I'm going to pause for just a second just to give time if anybody's typing. I have to say that something that was brought up earlier when we did like what the barriers are to having young people like buy in is that I think they're so used to like an immediate response. And then when they don't see that their voice has been heard like that, like they don't see immediate change, they think they failed, right? And that they didn't reach their goal or nobody listened, when we all know as adults that these big change takes a long time. And I think that that's a massive life skill just for growth in general as people. I know my daughter has said, well, I would do this, but like nobody listens to me. And I was like, well, that doesn't mean you stop. Like you just keep, somebody eventually will listen to you. Probably not me. No, I'm just kidding. Depending on what you want, if you want something bad enough. And they really are a generation fueled by social justice and fueled by this passion and this drive to make the world a better place. So that's great. It gives me a lot of hope for the future. I'm going to wrap us up. If you have further questions or you think of them after the fact, you can email them to myself. We will share contact information for all of our presenters today, or I can get an answer for you. If we can loop Betsy in and give her, one more thing on her to-do list, although it's probably pretty chock full. She's going to have a continuing adult education virtual class pretty soon. We will try to get those answers for those of you who are interested. If connecting with Betsy is something that is super important to you, you can email me directly, and that way we're not bombarding 170 people with emails or bombarding Betsy with 170 emails. So we will.
Did I mention Betsy has 5 children of her own?
Oh God,
from like age 15 down to age 6 or something. So,
God bless her. So thank you all so very much for your time this morning. Thanks to your young people for participating, and thanks to all of our participants for being here this morning. And I will talk to everybody at 1 o'clock. Thank you so much. Bye, Kaylee. Thank you.
Bye. Thanks, Christine.